I'm sure different people rent cars for different reasons. I got a ton of attention in this car, kids screaming, adults screaming, but that's not why I rented this car. I rented this car not for sightseeing, not for attention, but because I wanted to drive it on some fun roads and just have a kick ass time. And mission accomplished. I found those roads, I had a blast, it was so much fun. I'm just really happy with the experience, and I would highly recommend it for anyone. So recently, I've had the opportunity to compare some other cars and to drive them. For example, I own a Lotus Elise, I own an Alfa Romeo 4C, I've driven the new Lotus Emira, and I rented and drove a Corvette C8. So I thought, how did the Ferrari F8 compare to all those other cars? And the first and biggest impression that I came away with was refined or elegant. It was amazing. So I could definitely see, like James Bond wearing a tuxedo getting into this Ferrari F8 and zooming off to a casino and having some martinis or something, or with a beautiful woman by his side. I'm not sure that I could say the same for a lot of those other cars. And while I call this car refined, I was trying to compare and describe the other cars, and I would say that the other cars are all a little bit more raw, right? So the exhaust sound, for example, is a good one to talk about. So in all those other cars, the exhausts are very noticeable and more raw, especially within the cabin for the driver. And some of that, I believe, is because of lack of insulation, because they're trying to maintain the lightness of the car, keep them light, as with the 4C and the Elise. And with the Corvette C8, I think it's just intentional. They wanted that car to sound badass. When you start it up, it's like, crazy. Now, the Ferrari F8, when you start it up, it does have an initial. Bueno, gracias. But it's not as gravelly and deep as I think with the Corvette C8. But when you're driving the car from within the cabin, even with the top down, the exhaust makes all the right sounds, but you don't hear them like in your face. It's like I can hear the revving, I can hear the burbling and popping when I'm slowing down, but it seems a little bit subdued. So I don't know what it sounds like for someone outside the car. Sometimes that can vary a lot. But anyhow, I thought it was a good way to compare the cars and how I sort of described it as refined. So one of the things on the steering wheel is the mode selector, and the car has a variety of modes. It's got wet mode, race mode, track mode, and then a couple other modes, which I believe are like, electronic stability control and probably traction control. And those are really for track use only, but you can turn all those things off, it appears. The default is sport mode. There's no just normal driving mode. It's like if you're driving a Ferrari, you're driving it in sport mode or more aggressively than that. So one of the things I was disappointed with, however, was I'm on these back windy roads and I'm driving in automatic in sport mode, and I needed to pass a car. And, I floored it. I tried to pass the car. The Ferrari did not downshift. It kind of bogged down, and I ended up having to abort that passing attempt. And I was like, oh, what the heck? I mean, this is a Ferrari F8. It should know how to downshift and accelerate, but it didn't. So that was a little bit disappointing. And all I did was next time I had to pass, I went into manual mode, downshifted myself, and you're right past that car in the blink of an eye. So that was a little bit weird, considering that, like, again, as I said, I was in sport mode. I also noticed that in automatic mode, the car shifted up pretty quickly. So I'd be going only 40 or 50 kilometers per hour, and it was already in seventh gear, which was its top gear. So I don't know if that's for fuel efficiency or what it is, but that was a little bit disappointing. I really thought in automatic mode, I should still be able to punch it and quickly pass a car if I want to. But anyhow, it's maybe just a quirk of the car, or perhaps there's some trick that I'm not aware of that I should be aware of. Well, I was pleasantly surprised that the Ferrari F8 has what I would call a civilized gas filler. No cap, just this little baffle. So I admit I've been kind of spoiled with my Alfa Romeo 4C. I just love how that's set up with no gas cap. Makes all other cars a little bit inferior to me now, but the Ferrari F8 has got it covered.
I will also note that I really appreciate where Ferrari positioned this gas filler. You can see it's here on the vertical surface. There's not a lot of car, so that the when you take the gas out of the filler, it's not going to drip on the car. Cars like my Lotus Elise and my Alfa Romeo 4C put the gas filler up here somewhere, which is, when these gas pumps tend to drip a couple times after you take it off, that'll get on your car's finish, and that's a little bit annoying. Just one of those pet peeves of mine.
Oh, yeah. So one of the things that was a little bit of a sore point with me is the limited mileage with this car. You only get 300 kilometers. It's 150 kilometers per day, and I rented it for 2 days. A total of 300 kilometers, and then you have to pay €6 per kilometer, which is very expensive. I was prepared to pay extra if I really wanted to do some more driving, but as it turns out, I pulled into this parking garage today having done 297 kilometers. So just three shy of the limit, and it's fine. It was enough. I really enjoyed it thoroughly, and I don't feel the need to go driving anywhere else. Really, the problem with that would be that I'd have to drive 30 or 50 kilometers out of town to get to some really nice, enjoyable, fun roads. Try and do a little research this morning to see if I could find if that seat can be adjusted. I'm not sure that it can. It was also surprising that it's a completely manual setup because there are a lot of nice features in this car, but it's just a manual slide forward and backward in the car seat. The other thing worth noting is that the design of the cockpit is all focused around the driver. And so they've really done a great job of putting everything onto the steering wheel, and they've eliminated all the stalks for things like turn signals. And that is particularly helpful. So if you watch some of my other videos, you'll know that I have some mixed feelings about manual transmissions with a stick shift versus the dual clutch transmissions with paddle shifters. This car has DCT and paddle shifters, but by eliminating the stalks, they really have solved a lot of the problems that I have had with paddle shifters in the past. So for example, when I'm driving in a BMW driving school with paddle shifters and you're going around in a spirited fashion, and sometimes they have sprinklers turned on part of the course, I'm turning very sharply, and I might accidentally hit the windshield wiper stalk or some other stalk. So in my mind, that is inferior to having a dedicated stick shift where you know that that's for shifting. There's nothing else in the way to interfere with your shifting capabilities. The other thing with Ferrari is that their shift paddles are fixed position. So with a lot of cars, like my Alfa Romeo 4C, the paddles are affixed to the steering wheel. So as you turn, the paddles turn with you. And it can be hard to hit the paddle at the right time or find it, depending on what you're doing. So for example, if I'm starting from a dead stop and doing a sharp turn, if I have to move my hands from that position in the steering wheel, or even if I'm on the steering wheel but I'm at this extended position, it can be difficult to use the paddle. With the Ferrari F8, the paddles are always in the same position, so you always know where to find them. So that's kind of nice, and I do like that. And I have read that different car manufacturers have different philosophies about where to put those paddle shifters and whether to have them stationary or moving with the steering wheel. Most of them, however, seem to move with the steering wheel, and I think I like the fixed position better. That said, with all those stalks removed and everything focused on the steering wheel, the one thing that I had trouble getting used to was turn signaling because, I'm very used to using my pinky over on one side to just do a quick blip up if I want to turn, to the right, and it'll just flicker for a few times and then automatically turn off. With this one, you actually have two buttons on the steering wheel, one for the right turn signal, one for the left turn signal. You have buttons on the front, you can do a quick blip, or you can press it harder and it'll do a longer talk that requires turning the steering wheel to disengage it. And then to turn it off manually, you have to reach behind the steering wheel and pull it forward. So I found that tricky. And, whenever I was trying to focus on more than a couple things while driving, because of course we're trying to navigate in new areas and it's all kind of stressful, I was challenged to hit the turn signals correctly and remember to turn them off correctly. I think at the end of one full day, we did about 150 kilometers of driving. I finally started to get the hang of it, but it's still a little bit awkward for me. That said, I think it's just getting used to it, right? So I'm just used to driving the cars the way most cars are designed, and especially my specific cars. And this one is different. So I can't say whether I like it better or not. I will say I do like the focus of everything on the steering wheel. I think that they did a really good job with that. And, there's definitely something to be said for that design philosophy. So whether they went maybe a little too far with the turn signals, I don't know, but that would have resulted in a stock, which would have sort of broken their principle. So I don't know. Don't know what to say about that other than I found it difficult to get used to.
Here is the steering wheel, which I just think is pretty cool. You got your different mode selectors here. These are the turn signals I mentioned, and then to disengage them you have to flip them from the back here. So that's kind of weird. You can actually engage or disengage from the back, and the temporary turn is the tricky part. So yeah, that didn't work. There you go. So that's temporary. No, it's permanent. So then I have to disengage. Okay, I think that's temporary. Yeah, there's the key fob display thingy, which again, not super impressed with that from another view. Doug DeMuro did a nice review of the Ferrari F8, and he talked about this silly little key display area where you can display the Ferrari key fob and impress your passenger with the fact that you're driving a Ferrari and remind them that they're in a Ferrari. But it does kind of take the place of a second cup holder. You've got a cup holder here, and then this whole thing takes up one. I'll be honest, I don't like keeping the fob there because I would hate to leave the car and leave the fob in it. It's a fob, so the car detects your presence. It doesn't have to be sitting there displayed. So I would just as soon keep it in my pocket. We've got this button here, which is basically for bumpy roads. So with the cobblestones and stuff, that helps. But you've got all your other controls here. Wipers, you've got your lights, all that kind of good stuff. And no stalks. Okay, there are other controls here. These knobs are to change this display, and these knobs are to change this display. Okay, and then you've got your climate control there in the center. And in the center here you've got reverse gear, switching between automatic and manual mode. Launch mode, unfortunately, was forbidden. Windows, and then this is for the roof. You've got a frunk button over here, gas cap button over here. The interior is pretty nice, not bad. I also wanted to note that the carbon fiber on this car is a very different pattern from what I'm used to seeing. If you look at it closely, it doesn't have that same woven look as most carbon fiber. Or maybe it's a different type of composite material. I'm not quite sure. I'm going to have to do some research on that. But it definitely looks different from what you see on most carbon fiber cars, such as my Alfa Romeo 4C, which is an all carbon fiber tub. I'm here at the Estoril racetrack, a former Formula One racetrack. And this is where in 1985, Ayrton Senna, driving his Lotus 97T, won the race, his first pole position, his first Formula One victory in pouring rain, lapping everyone except the pole 2 finisher. So I won't go so far as to say it's Lotus holy ground, but yeah, it sort of is. And today I'm here in this awesome Ferrari F8 Tributo that I rented for a couple days. And we're just kind of doing the thing down here near Lisbon, Portugal.
Okay, so I'm here with my friend Fernando Alonso. We just finished first day test driving a Ferrari F8. Of our little adventures today, which one is most memorable?
First, when seeing the car, like being that close, being inside the car,
Okay. So just
and then when we went to these small roads and we were going left and right, the curves, it was very, very nice. The speed, that's when I felt the speed, and it was amazing.
Fernando was an excellent navigator. Good job, Fernando.
No problem.
And we had some good times and some challenging times. Europe is always a bit challenging for me. I did scuff up the tire. I'll show that on part of the video. Being in the city, sightseeing, everything is tight, and this particular tire scuff happened in a parking lot. So as we were trying to exit the parking lot and pay, the wheel got scuffed up pretty good. The other adventure was we use an app called roadcurvature.com, and we were looking for some nice curvy roads to enjoy, and it took us down a dirt road. And maybe we should have been wiser and stopped when we saw it was dirt road, but I was hopeful that it was just a short little dirt road, and we kept going and we kept going. And Fernando was very helpful. He actually got out of the car several times to help me navigate around things and to remove large obstacles from the road. We, I think, came out of that unscathed, but I was very nervous, of course, iron fist on the steering wheel the whole time, and always trying to dodge the little dips and bumps in the road to keep things from harming the car. So that was stressful, but we came through it okay. Day 2 in the car, I definitely felt more at ease. I was more familiar with everything. I wasn't as tense, and so it was even more enjoyable than it was yesterday. And it was a hell of a lot of fun yesterday, so that's really saying something. So how did today go? Today was fabulous. I started out early in the morning. I think I got out of the house around 8:30, and I was jamming to the tunes because I had to navigate. I connected my phone to pause while I turn on lights. It's got, a timer light with motion sensor, and so every so often it goes off and I have to go and turn it back on. I got up early and had a long morning, got home around 1:30. And so, of course, at this point now, once I got home, I'm having a couple beers. I'm already into my second one. Estoril. It's a good Spanish beer. And one of the songs I was listening to was Twist and Shout, which, if you've ever seen the movie Ferris Bueller's Day Off, he borrows a friend's father's classic Ferrari, and they go on a joyride, and that car kind of gets abused and trashed during that day. Brought some really good memories, plus the fact that my daughter's wedding a few weeks ago also had that in their reception playlist. So anyhow, I was really enjoying listening to the music, jamming out, driving through town. And then I went across the Vasco da Gama Bridge, which is one of the longest bridges in the world. I think it's the second longest in Europe. And that was very interesting. But I wasn't impressed with the acceleration when I was in automatic mode. And if you recall, I was driving pretty slow, like 50 kilometers per hour, maybe 60, and needed to pass someone. And when I pressed the gas, it kind of bogged down. It was already in 7th gear, which seemed kind of high to me, but I think they're doing it for fuel efficiency purposes. Anyhow, on the highway, if you're traveling highway speeds and you punch it, this car flies. I mean, it's like a bat out of hell. So I think there must be a trick to how you pass when you're traveling at lower speeds and the car is in a higher gear. I could obviously switch to manual, but there's probably a simpler way to do that, to just execute a quick pass and stay in automatic mode. I just don't know it. I haven't had the car long enough. I know that would help me drive better and faster, pass faster. There goes the light again. So I'll have a sip of beer. Before I go, I don't know, maybe I should just do this in the dark. Oh well, I'll go turn on the lights. That's pretty good. Oh, except it doesn't show my head. Okay, it's time for me to get sexy and dirty, apparently. So I'll just lay down like this. Okay, so final couple notes. And I wanted to say, too, that the stereo in this car is fabulous. I mean, the quality of the sound with the top down was just astounding. I loved it. It was so nice to jam. Okay, what else? Oh, yeah. All yesterday, Fernando and I kept the top down. I kept asking, every time we stopped, we put it up as we were parking, leave the car for safety reasons. And when we get back in the car, it's like, do you want to top up or down? Always down. And I agreed. It was awesome. And today, too, I was like driving it around. I was like, gosh, I just haven't driven this car with the top up. So I eventually did that at the very end of my drive, and I've got a little bit of footage. Maybe I'll share that. But I wanted to see what it was like. You know, how quiet is the car with the top up? What is the feeling of luxury? Now this is if I had a little bit of wine here and some candles, this would be pretty romantic, wouldn't it? Okay, let me go turn the light back on. Okay. Well, it's a good thing that I'm about done with my day 2 updates, because if those lights go out one more time, the next time you see me, I might be naked lying on a bearskin rug. You just never know. So we drove the car for most of the day yesterday, and we went topless the entire time. And the automatic hardtop is amazing. It's so fast to go up and down. It was fun to watch. And driving the car topless is a lot of fun too. I was wearing a cap the entire time, and my friend Fernando was like, I can't believe your cap's not blowing off. I'm like, no, they designed the airflow properly so that it doesn't really buffet you in the cabin. But it was a joy to drive topless. So because we were driving with the top down all day, I can say that the visibility was awesome. It was just amazing. I couldn't believe that I was driving in such a, small-ish sports car, because as I looked around, I had complete visibility. It was great. I could look to the side and see everything. I never felt at risk, as opposed to in many cars that I own, it's questionable, right? So I've driven a Corvette C8. That was, tricky visibility. I've my Lotus Elise, even with the top off, because it's sort of a targa top, you have a lot of structure around you. And my Alfa Romeo 4C is a coupe, and so visibility is very much at a premium in that car. So this car had fabulous visibility with the top down. I might have to try it a little bit with the top up just to see how different the visibility is, but I have to say it was just fabulous.
Okay, we're going to try some luxury driving now with the top up and with the air conditioning on, just to see what the difference is. So far, I'd say the cabin is very comfortable, very quiet. Air conditioning is doing a good job.
Speaking of visibility, one of the things that was really surprising was that the Ferrari F8 did not come with any cameras of any kind. Now, I believe there might be some options for getting some cameras, but still, for $300,000, you would think that there'd be some sort of a default setup of cameras for backing up or something like that. They did have backup sensors and sensors in the front of the car, which seemed to work pretty well. I used them, they indicated obstacles, and I didn't bump into anything when using them. But when spaces were tight, my co-pilot Fernando would get out still and, check things out to make sure I wasn't getting too close to things. I didn't really want to trust them. Having a visual aid like a backup camera would have been much better, and I would hope that Ferrari would get with the modern times and put that in their car. In contrast, the Corvette C8 had so many cameras. It was insane. They even had software that could stitch together some of the camera angles to give you a top-down view of your car. It was so cool. For pulling up to a curb, you could see the front of the car and as it was pulling up to a curb. So it gave you a lot of confidence in parking and maneuvering that car.
So I thought I'd take this opportunity to talk about the car a little bit. The rear hatch opening, I won't call it a trunk, is here next to the driver's seat. So just like in my Alfa Romeo 4C, that's kind of cool. And the rear hatch, again, I'm not going to call it a trunk, is such a cool shape. It looks like something that should be in the Avengers or some sci-fi movie. Anyhow, you can lift it up and see what's inside. Not a lot of access, no storage here. Obviously use the frunk for storage, but it is still kind of cool.
Any other thoughts before we wrap up?
Yeah, follow Peter.
Okay. And Fernando, do you want to say anything for our Spanish-speaking listeners?
Vean el canal de Peter, le gusta la velocidad, y si pueden, intenten alquilar un Ferrari. Es una muy buena experiencia.
I have no idea what he just said. But don't listen to him if he was talking bad about me.
No, I was
But if
not.
he was talking positive, then believe every word he said.
I was being very positive.
Okay,
I was telling
okay.
them to, if they haven't had the experience to have or rent a Ferrari, have it, just to, if possible, to do it because it's another whole movie, another whole experience.
Okay, good. Well, I was going to use Google Translate right later.
I know you. I know you will.
Thanks, everybody. Have a great day. Bye. If you haven't already subscribed to my channel, I would really appreciate it if you'd subscribe. I'm trying to get up to 1,000 subscribers so that I can become a full member of the YouTube Partner Program. That's where some interesting things happen. So if you haven't already subscribed, I would really, really appreciate it if you would subscribe now. Thanks, and have a great day.